Loops 52. 52.1, Detective Ethan Redfield. And with a burst of green flame from her horn, Celestia's scroll burned to a crisp and whisked away to twilight. She hoped that twilight would follow her instructions, because the fate of Equestria, and herself, depended on it. Her eyes drifted to the windows and the sun. Before long, it would be nightfall and the beginning of her hopefully short imprisonment on the sun, so she decided to indulge herself a bit. Several servants were sent off to prepare some cake, and in the meantime, she would walk among the gardens. The sun shone brightly and the wind playfully pushed at the celestial pony's mane. It was a good day as she walked among the sculptures. Stories of heroes and villains in ages long past accompanied each statue, and all were dear to her heart. Or at least all but one, as she came to Discord's statue. Her oldest foe stood wearing an expression of utter joy. But then again, he never saw it coming, literally, as he didn't realize the threat Celestia and Luna posed. Luna, who had helped her save the land from Discord, her head lowered and her insides turned to ashes. Everything seemed to remind her of Luna or what was at stake should they fail. Crack! Her eyes widened as her head rose to see a massive crack form in Discord's statue. Her heart rate tripled. No. Why now? Why did the seal have to break now? She hadn't prepared anything for this. Then, the stone shattered and the laughter he had been holding in finished itself. Celestia shouted, "Discord! How is this possible?" Her horn glowed, but Discord just gave her a condescending smile. "Oh, hello Celestia, good seeing you. Unfortunately, we got to cut this reunion short, got to say hello to some old friends in Ponyville and figure out something to do before movie night. Looking forward to seeing you there," finishing up with a bright tone before snapping his fingers and disappearing in a burst of white light. The doors to the throne room burst open as Celestia shouted, "Captain! Rally your men at once, one of my ancient enemies, Discord Br." She trailed off as the sight of Luna on her throne in her non-nightmare moon form looked on in concern. Celestia's jaw couldn't get much more wide. Luna face hoofed and asked, "Oh, what did Discord do now?" "Well, don't worry about it, sister. We'll be sure to talk to him about it at movie night." Celestia blinked her eyes several times, then rubbed her hooves against them. "Luna? Is that you?" Luna looked quite concerned. "You all right, Tia? It's like you haven't seen me in 1,000 years." Celestia's eyes somehow grew wider in deeper confusion as her voice became more exasperated. "But wha? I haven't seen you in 1,000 years." Luna rolled her eyes. "Look, I've learned my lesson already. Don't unleash a couple parasprites on an unsuspecting town again, I get it. I've only been on timeout for a week on the moon, just returned a few minutes ago." As she tried to formulate a response to that contradiction with history, a voice spoke from the throne room doors. "Excuse me, Princess Luna, we wanted to get your opinion on our nightmare night costume since I was in the area." Celestia turned point her hoof at the pony who mentioned the defeat of Nightmare Moon, and which went hoof and hoof with Luna's imprisonment on the moon, when a new sight made her eyes become like saucers. Before her stood another Luna that was picture perfect in her appearance. Luna rose from her seat and circled around the nervous alicorn. The Night Princess shoved her face into her face, scrutinizing and looking her over. After a few minutes of silence, which allowed Celestia's eyes to grow so wide it looked like they would pop out by now, Luna gave an approving grin. "It's not perfect, but passable. A couple of the stars in your mane are wrong and the cutie mark is a bit off the flank, but otherwise you look just like my twin sister." "I'm standing right next to you," Celestia blurted out before she slapped her hoof into her mouth. Luna narrowed her eyes at her a bit, but then chuckled. "Not to worry, Tia. No one can replace you. Have you met Chrysalis before? She's a master at makeup and disguises. Why, she promised to show me her changeling disguise at the movie night. I couldn't refuse." It was then that Shining Armor walked through another entrance. "Excuse me, Princess Luna, but Princess Nightmare Moon sent a request for help with the environment dome on the moon." Something about the beryllium sphere needing replacing. Luna groaned, again, that's the third time this month. All right, I'm on my way. Celestia, can you see Chrysalis out? I would appreciate it forever. Thank you so much. With that, the Princess of the Night disappeared in a blue teleportation flash. Celestia didn't say anything, heck she didn't even move as her eye just twitched and her mane became frazzled. Chrysalis walked around Celestia, then poked her, Princess Celestia, you all right? Celestia's mouth twitched for a second, then her eyes returned to their normal size. A grunt escaped her mouth, followed shortly by a chortle, then a chuckle and finally a laugh. Seconds later, she was rolling on the floor in mad laughter. It continued for several minutes before she managed to compose herself. Chrysalis backed away from her as Celestia rose to her feet once again. The changeling asked in a worried tone, "Are you all right?" Celestia was cross-eyed at this point, never better. Just realized, this is all a dream and nothing matters. Discord couldn't have escaped his prison, both Mai and Luna's connection to the elements haven't been severed yet. Luna is still trapped on the moon as Nightmare Moon and the proof is you, Chrysalis. You're a perfect copy of Princess Luna. Chrysalis looked confused, wait, you think this is a dream? What else could it be? Celestia walked forward a few feet, missing Chrysalis pumping her hoof in victory, but she didn't miss her whisper, knew it. Pinkie owes me 50 bits. The Sun Princess' eyes narrowed, I'm sorry, her head snapping to the Queen, what was that? Chrysalis lifted a hoof in a placating gesture, nothing, Princess, nothing at all. I got to go. See you at movie night. / 52.2, Hubris Plus. Rusty blinked awake in the pilot's seat of the X1, which was thankfully on autopilot at the moment, and reached up to scratch at his scalp. Bald again, he noted morosely. Loops in the mirror universe were always pleasant, but waking up in the baseline afterwards tended to leave him disappointed. Still, he might be able to swing the musical again at the very least. He'd made sure to keep a copy of the script in his pocket ever since he'd finished it, and knew which contacts he'd have to make on Broadway. He put that line of though on hold as he gave his loop memories a cursory review for any glaring changes to the timeline. On his way to Mexico, officially to do a physics lecture, privately to pick up certain questionably legal medications. He'd drop those and pay the knife jockeys to cut his twin out of him. And pay them extra to leave everything else where it was. Temporarily converting HEL.P.ER into a power suit would ingratiate Jonas to him, and Loop's worth of debugging his inventions would ensure he didn't get outdone. A burst of chatter and the sound of scampering feet from the back of the plane shook him out of his planning and he frowned at the interruption. Girls? He shouted, no horsing around on the X1. Wait. Girls? He paused to consider what he'd just said and examined his loop memories more carefully. Hank and Dean seemed to have been replaced by Bella, though apparently he called her Sweetie, and Blossom. The second gave him pause as he furiously hoped that this wasn't a Powerpuff-fused loop. Udinium had had words with him the last time that had happened. A snort of laughter from the seat beside him drew his attention to Dash, a woman with rainbow-dyed hair who had apparently swapped in for Brock. All right, we're almost there, so I hope you're all awake, he called out. Bright-eyed and apparently tailless, Dash answered amicably. Both owe us. Blossom said as the two girls moved to the front of the plane. Good. You two, he pointed at the girls, stay on the plane. My nemesis likes to kidnap my kids first thing, and there's no telling what nonsense he'll pull if he's awake. Your nemesis is looping? Sweetie asked. It wasn't unheard of, as proved by Chrysalis and Discord, but villains looping was unusual, and it was doubly so for them to remain villains after any significant amount of time. It's a frenemy thing, Venture grumbled, pinching the bridge of his nose. He's annoying, but supervillainy is more of a sport than anything here. My life is weird. Right, Blossom said after a moment. Gimme the schematics and some tools and I'll be happy to stay aboard. She patted the plane's console in an almost loving way that immediately identified her as an engineer. Rusty was almost disappointed that she was practically guaranteed to show him up, but at the very least he'd be able to crib a few ideas for future loops. Deal, just make sure we can make a quick getaway. Anyways, he pointed at Dash, need to make sure some surgeons don't steal my kidneys while they're extracting the twin I consumed in the womb. He took a certain amount of satisfaction from their dumbfounded expressions. I told you my life is weird. I still don't get why you're afraid of the rabbit, 24 lamented. It's tiny and adorable and has a little fluffy tail. And you're a total badass. Dude, I've been in Holy Grail loops, 21 answered between push-ups. It was always a hassle getting back into shape at the start of a loop, but so very worth it. Messing with bunnies? Bad idea. Alright, we'll leave the bunny alone. What about the new monarch, got a bead on her? Seems like a nice girl. Little shy, though. Might wanna call in Killinger to help out. I thought you hated that guy. 24 was still relatively new to the loops and getting used to the new dynamics. His best friend suddenly being a commando that could go toe-to-toe with Brock, unstoppable killing machine Samson, sometimes seemed like the least of it. He's not so bad once you get to know him. Is he looping? No idea, guy's impossible to read. Rusty pulled the X1 into the Venture hangar while Blossom, or Apple Bloom as she apparently usually went by, excitedly discussed prosthesis possibilities with Jonas in the back. The whole trip had gone surprisingly smoothly, with none of the Monarch's usual shenanigans and a clean extraction of his twin. Apple Bloom had even managed to milk a 7% efficiency increase out of the engines in the few hours she'd had. If things stayed this quiet, he might even try for a vacation loop. Those hopes were dashed as he spotted the two figures waiting at the bottom of the loading ramp as they exited. The first, who he guessed was subbing for Dermot, ran past him and started chatting animatedly with the girls. The other was a woman wearing a familiar lab coat, though in purple with a star-shaped sigil rather than the usual black with skull motif. On her face was a bone-white mask, unmarked save for a conical horn rising from the forehead. "Greetings," the woman said seriously. "I am Dr. Twilight Killinger, and this," she held up a purple purse, "is my fearsome friendship bag." Rusty pinched the bridge of his nose and was about to retort when a door slammed open in the hangar. A woman in blue swept in, cape billowing behind her impressively. "Trixie Orpheus," his loop memories supplied. "Halt!" she proclaimed, pressing one hand to her temple while the other pointed at Twilight, fingers splayed wide. "I detect a terrible evil here. It seeks to corrupt and subvert you. Begone, foul interloper, you have no place here." With each word she advanced, a brilliant white glow gathering around her outstretched hand. Finally, only a few steps away, the radiance reached a peak before exploding outwards, bathing the entire hangar in fierce light. Twilight stared stonily at Trixie for a long moment, completely unscathed by the display. "Your powers are useless on me, you silly filly." The stare down continued for another few moments before the pair cracked and started laughing. "Sorry about that, Dr. Venture," Twilight said as she turned to face Rusty again and extended her hand. "We couldn't resist." "Twilight Sparkle, Equestrian anchor at your service." "Thaddeus Venture, super scientist," he deadpanned in reply. "Welcome to the Venturiverse." That got him a few stares. "Don't look at me. Hank's the anchor," he named it. "There's a fair chance you're gonna regret letting him handle this," Bronco cautioned as they waited in the Ponyville auditorium. "Well, he told me he wasn't gonna hurt any pony, and trust me, I can tell if somebody's lying." Applejack answered beside him. "Yeah, not sure he's capable of lying, doesn't mean you should trust him. Killinger, Dusk Contract is a slippery bastard when he has a mind to be." The unicorn in question was standing in the center of the auditorium, night black with a grey mane and a cutie mark of twisting red lines that suggested the shape of a skull. The ceremony began and, right on cue, shadows coalesced on stage, taking the form of Nightmare Moon. Yes. Dusk called out, excellent. Seize control of Vhat is rightfully yours and assert your dominance over those who denied your magnificence. Now is the hour of your victory, on so long as you remain firm in your purpose you are invincible. What? Luna asked, confused. She'd intended cause a little scare, notice that her armor had gone out of style, revert to her typical form and then step aside for her sister. Encouragement was usually the last thing she expected while still in nightmare mode. Each night you grace the skies with lights and wander beyond number, and yet you are scorned by your subjects, who choose to bask in the gaudy simplicity of your sister's single sphere. Where is the justice? It is only right that you take your rightful place as absolute ruler of day and night. So he's trying to convince her to maintain the day/night cycle even in victory? I suppose we've tried stranger, but most fused loopers try to prevent victory from the outset, Rarity commented quietly. He's kinda a supervillain life coach, this is what he does, Bronco answered. That's, very nice and all, Luna said, reverting to her natural state, but I've had 1,000 years to think on it, and I've decided that the natural order is fine the way it is. I just really want to reconcile with my sister and sleep in an actual bed. Dusk Contract contemplated for a moment before nodding. If that is your desire, I have no quarrel. Far be it from me to stand in the way of love. The ponies gave a collective sigh of relief as Luna stepped off the stage to give Celestia the spotlight. Then every window in the building shattered as the doors slammed open, every opening disgorging hundreds of butterflies into the chamber. Their entrance masked the two ponies that followed, concealing them from sight until the swarm swooped up to fly around the ceiling. One was a Pegasus stallion who had a deep yellow coat with a short cropped red mane and short pointed beard, 3 butterflies that somehow seemed menacing emblazoned on his flank. The mare beside him was pale pink with a black mane and a bob cut and a cutie mark of a heart and a syringe. Dr. Venture. As you have feared in your heart of hearts, I have followed you even here. The stallion bellowed. Yes, Venture, there is nowhere you can hide. No matter how far you run, how many universes you flee across, whatever form you may take, the monarch will always find you. And now, bolstered by the power of nature itself, I will at long last dest. Dude, calm down, my dad isn't even here, a colt with a blue coat and blonde mane interrupted. Roy you, the monarch trailed off. Wait, really? Oh. Sorry about that everyone. It's kind of my thing. It's all right honey, came the surprisingly deep voice of the mare, you did a great job, he would have been shaking. Angel, you're the best, he answered before looking around awkwardly. There an IHOP in this universe? Kinda in the mood for breakfast. Nonsense, Dusk stated, trotting for the door, a home-cooked meal is far superior. Come, I will make ze flapjacks. The native loopers couldn't help but stare as their various guests filed out the door, Bronco shrugging at them before following suit. I can't tell if any o that violated the sanctuary, Applejack said after a moment. Seemed like they were having fun to me, Pinkie chimed in. And isn't that what matters? Asterisk sister. Yes, Luna. Celestia answered over breakfast the next day. Why is there a statue of David Bowie in the garden? Alternate ending. Luna, I'm not quite sure what I'm looking at here, Celestia said as she examined the sheaf of papers she'd been given. It's a standard guild arching contract. There's a schedule for my weekly attacks on the palace on page 12. She telekinetically flipped the packet to the proper page. Weekly attacks on the palace. Well, I talked it over with Dusk Contract, and he convinced me that it would be healthy to work out any latent anger issues this way. No pony gets hurt but, well, sometimes it's nice to just have an out-and-out fight. Celestia hummed absently and a mischievous glint entered her eye as she reviewed the papers. Would it be possible to roll back the Thursday assault by an hour or so? I suppose, I only put it that late because I thought you had a meeting with the nobles then. She blinked as realization hit her. Sister, I do believe that I am supposed to be the evil mastermind. / 52.3, Masterweaver. Rarity smiled to herself as she heard a familiar clip-clop of hooves and slap of claws behind her, sewing up the final tapestry for this particular summer sun celebration. Beautiful. Her ears swiveled for a second. Yes, Spike, the decorations are lovely. There had been the briefest of hesitations in Twilight's voice. So. Not that. Her. That line clinched it. Rarity's shoulders slumped for a second, before she schooled her face and turned around. From behind the love-struck little drake, Twilight was giving her an apologetic grimace. She smiled wistfully, shaking her head and waving it off. She trotted down to little Spiky Wikey, keeping herself calm. It's good to know that the next generation can recognize true beauty. The drake blushed, rubbing the back of his head. You weren't supposed to hear that. Nonsense. Rarity tittered. You have most excellent taste, if I do say so myself. Why, you remind me so much of my paramour, I could almost swear you were his brother. Your paramour. It hurt to see Spike's heart break like that. But, Rarity knew, it was for the best. Still. Sweetie wasn't awake this loop. Why yes. Do you know, I was just telling my younger sister how she needed to find someone to teach her the fine art of discernment. She leaned in, fluttering her eyelids just so. Maybe you could help her out with that. Spike considered the request. Well. I am, kind of busy helping Twilight. Of course. Such a responsible young drake. I wouldn't dream of separating you from your duty, especially when you're assisting your sister. Tell you what, though, there's going to be a party before the celebration proper. She winked. I'll bring my sister, and a few gems. That sounds nice. Twilight, do you think? Of course we'll go to the party, Spike. The scholarly unicorn smiled and nuzzled him gently. I shouldn't have stopped us from going to Moondancer's party in the first place. Spike boggled for a few seconds. Then a smug smirk formed on his face. Loosening up, That's good. He took out the checklist, marking something off. That's decorations. All that's left is music. The two of them walked toward the door. Twilight looked back for a brief moment, mouthing something. Thank you. Sorry. Rarity sighed, shaking her head. Not a problem. She could wait. / 52.4. Twilight smiled wistfully as the world clicked into place around her. Then blinked. Same library, no book. That means a variant loop. Poor Spike and Rarity, assuming both of them were awake. Variants which didn't involve a nightmare moon could make it quite difficult for the two of them to enjoy their newly married life. Wait a second. Why is there a dragon wearing armor on the roof spire? Loop memories settled, answering her question quite nicely. Oh. Okay, then. Leave us, King Spike Oron the just said to his guards. My student deserves a private audience. Queen Rarity the Wise activated a sound muffling field for good measure, and as soon as the doors closed Spike grinned. Nice to see you, Twilight, Rarity said. Apparently, the admins think we've been doing rather good work. Yet, we got a loop as the rulers of Equestria straight off. I think we might actually be in the running for longest honeymoon in history. Spike shrugged. I'm hardly complaining. I'm happy for you, Twilight said sincerely, then got a glint in her eye. Your Majesties. Oh, stop it, Rarity waved a hoof. So, Twilight began. Since there's no nightmare moon and no equivalent villain, any idea what I should do until the Discord incident rolls around? I actually have no idea, Spike admitted. I know Ponyville's still there. I remember granting the charter. Pen friends. Rarity suggested. / 52.5, Oracle Mask. Twilight went over her plan again as the Pegasus guards flew her and Spike to Ponyville. She'd picked up a new spellbook in her last fused loop and it had some interesting spells inside that she couldn't wait to test out. This solo loop would be the perfect place for initial testing. At least, she thought that until the chariot came in for a landing in Ponyville. Bubblegum Pink Ponyville. Gah. Twilight managed halfway intelligently. Okay, so somehow her normal Equestria now contained a Ponyville where Rainbow Dash dressed in style. As the chariot flew off, and Spike unrolled the official Summer Sun Celebration Overseer's checklist, baseline version, Twilight frantically tried to figure out what had gone wrong. Had she overloaded something? Had Trixie blown up something she shouldn't have? Oh my gosh! You're new! A cheerful voice with a slight lisp exclaimed. Turning her head, Twilight found a certain pink pony smiling at her. It wasn't her regular Pinkie at all, but the local party-throwing one without any strange powers. Compared to the proper Pinkie Pie, this Pinkie was as bland as oatmeal. I wonder what would happen if she got the element of laughter. Mentally, Twilight snagged the errant thought before it could disappear and examined it more closely. Well, aside from the existence of this Ponyville, the rest of the loop was normal baseline, and she did need 5 extra bearers, why not? Asterisk this time, when the elements of harmony activated, it was more like an explosion than a rainbow. Shaking the ringing out of her ears, Twilight took a second to check that yes, Luna was no longer Nightmare Moon, before turning her attention eagerly to her new friends. This necklace is absolutely positively amazing. Pinkie Pie, bearer of laughter, exclaimed. Darlings, did you see that? We made a rainbow that was absolutely dashing. Said Rainbow Dash, bearer of generosity. Golly, I hope we didn't hit that nightmare lady too hard, replied Applejack, bearer of honesty. Okay, Whistle, we defeated the ultra big super spooky nightmare. Whistle, can we go home now? Whistled Thistle Whistle, bearer of loyalty. I think I feel a new song coming on, Star Song Melody, bearer of kindness, said to no pony in particular. Twilight kept it from showing, but on the inside she was grinning. She'd had more than her fill of being stuck in their boring version of Ponyville. Now, let the social experiment begin. / 52.6, Masterweaver. Twilight sipped her tea, peering at the zebra fiddling with her potions. You know, you seem to be taking the whole loops thing fairly well. That is a fair observation, Zecora replied. Is that a cause for consternation? No, it's just, most ponies, when they start looping, have some form of panic attack once in a while. The librarian leaned back. Well, not panic exactly. I buried myself in my books, Applejack sorta became listless, Rarity had a goth phase, Pinkie, we don't talk about that. There's something they do, something like a mix of existential horror and sheer boredom compelling them at random intervals to just break character, or hide away. We all get over it pretty quickly, especially with each other's help, but the thing is I haven't seen anything like that with you. You've just accepted this, and I can't figure out why. Zecora smiled as she poured a few bottles into a cauldron. My life is based on nature's rhythm, I do little on some wild whim. These loops are just a larger pattern, one which I can easily learn. Even with fused loops variety, I find my path simple to see. Twilight sipped her tea thoughtfully. I see. Hey. Well, alright then. Oh, incidentally, AJ's got a greenhouse where we gather plants from across the multiverse. Just in case you want to try something new with your alchemy. Plants from other worlds, you say? Zecora nodded. I suppose I could study them today. I would love a chance to improve my art, it would distract me from the weight on my heart. Twilight's ears perked. This is about the whole xenophobia thing, isn't it? She tapped her chin thoughtfully. It would be easy to bring you in as a foreign correspondent, or even arrange for you to defeat Nightmare Moon. Actually, it would be easy to attribute her defeat to you, say that you led us to the elements and boom. The zebra tilted her head. I thank you for your offer, Twilight, to remove Ponyville of its bite. Let us see what we can arrange so my entry each loop will change. / 52.7. I think I understand, Silver said, nodding slowly. So we each get to pick a kind of ship. Or lots o' little ones, Applebloom confirmed. Though it gets kinda tricky to keep track of 'em all, if y'all take that option. Right. So. I use this computer. Yep. Design's fairly intuitive. And it keeps what y'all design secret from ta rest of us, too. I see. Silver sat down, moving her tail aside, and cracked her paws. Thanks for the custom seat, by the way. Well, it was an interesting challenge, the engineer reassured her. Ain't every loop I even know a diamond dog, let alone have one round. Silver shot her a teeth-bared grin, then got to typing. Well, this'll be interesting, Nyx mused, looking down from the cloud. With the tap of a button, her plotting sphere flashed to life. Okay, guys, get going. She pitched her cloud tent. Seeing as the starting range on this one was no less than 300 miles, it was kind of necessary. Kinda wish I had a screen, Scooterloo mused, tapping away at her control board. Okay, clear decks. Engines flared. 2 by 2, 16 fighters climbed clear of the hurricane and orbited briefly before rocketing off in a search pattern. Scooterloo watched them go, then brought up a lift from the hangar deck to start spotting Sea Kings. Being hit by a submarine had been kind of funny once. Twice? No thanks. There were a series of loud splash sounds off the port bow. Scooterloo threw Hurricane into a hard starboard turn, baring her teeth as the follow-up shots missed astern. That did still leave several questions, though. Her lightning IICs had a perimeter at 50 miles out, so how had they missed whatever had done that? Wait a section. Silver, she shouted, as the radar confirmed her guess. Did you mount railguns? Guilty, Silver replied, laughter in her voice. Hold still, by the way, these shots still take a long time to travel. Like hey. Scooterloo tapped on her board, sending the anti-shipping armed aircraft on a reciprocal of the ridiculously high-speed shots coming from well over the horizon. Splashes bracketed Hurricane, but there was no real damage, and she started a random walk evasive pattern. Oh, that reminds me, I sunk Diamond earlier, Silver volunteered, still cheerful. She had an Aegis cruiser. You know, the ships with all the missiles. Scooterloo sobered a bit. Yeah, that's kind of lucky for me. That's the best matchup you could have had, and the worst for me. Why do I even bother with the light ships anymore? Diamond asked, looking glumly at the plotting sphere. I should try something like an Iowa class next time and those nifty nuclear shells they get. I think that might breach Trixie's copyright, Nyx replied. Silver whined. That was the main power feed. Good to know I got something worthwhile, Scooterloo rejoined. Those railguns are nasty in air defense mode. Thanks. Silver replied, sounding much happier. How many of your planes did I get, by the way? 14 Lightning IIC, Scooterloo answered. Kinda hurts, too, that's half my air wing. I feel for you, Silver said unsincerely. Don't go too far, I'm off to fix the power feed. The connection closed. Scooterloo wasted no time in putting all 8 reactors to full power and motoring off south at full speed, getting as much distance as possible between her and the railguns. Hey, sweetie. Scooterloo asked. Guess what? Sweetie turned from her periscope. What? She returned dutifully. Did you know that LiDAR can pick up submarines at periscope depth? The unicorn leapt for the crash dive button, but too late. 4 homing torpedoes crashed into the water from a pair of Sea Kings, opening the side from bow to stern. Hi, Sweetie said morosely. So much for the idea of an attack sub. I think we were all expecting you to go sub again after you won last time, Tyara replied. This is taking a lot longer than it did before. I have a chaos set in my bag, Nyx volunteered. Sure, Sweetie said, examining the plotter. Wait, is Apple Bloom? Yet. Tyara looked marginally less sour. That's going to be a surprise. All right, that's it, Scooterloo muttered, as the last of her second strike were torn apart by a repaired aft railgun. If you want a job doing properly, do it yourself. Setting the carrier on a southward course, she cantered down to the flight deck. Just one? Silver asked, shaking her head. Really not that impressive. Peng went the railgun, making the whole structure shiver with recoil. Hey, she added, as the speck of color didn't disappear. That's unusual. The muzzle tracked around smoothly, and spoke again. Okay, that's getting annoying. Hold still so I can shoot you. The Lightning II jinked sideways in mid-air as the thrusters gimbaled left, pulling a maneuver no conventional plane could match. VIFFING was tricky, but very useful. With a triumphant grin, Scooterloo launched her missiles directly at the bridge. That was mildly unpleasant, Silver admitted, scratching behind one ear. Does it always feel like that? Yes, it does, Tyara answered for her. Better than exploding, though. Gotcha. Silver removed the teleport harness. Okay, where's Apple Bloom? They pointed at the plotting sphere. Hey. Okay. The currently a diamond dog looked at the board. Hey, I'm not all that up on the rules, can you deal me in? Sure, Tyara said, placing a card on the table. I'm playing minion, along with sudden but inevitable betrayal. What does that do? Nyx asked, picking up the rulebook. Tyara gestured to Silver to pull up, well, some cloud. Well, minion lets me draft any one non-playing person around the table in as a player who has to do what I say and I pick Silver. Sudden but inevitable betrayal would have cost me points if I'd ended the game without playing it, but it means you don't have to do what I say anymore. Cool. Thanks. Silver dealt herself some cards. What does a walrus have to do with anything? Discord, they chorused. Scooterloo landed on the flight deck with the satisfaction of a job well done. But, glad as she was to have sorted out Silver before she ran out of planes, there was still that one problem. Okay, where the hay is Apple Bloom? Game's not over yet. High above Equestria, Apple Bloom permitted herself a satisfied smile. Sure, they were probably going to accuse her of cheating again. But she'd only specified the tech level. She'd never said it had to be a sea ship. The hold of her SSTO flyer opened, releasing a little over 100 dense iron spheres. Look out below. / 52.8. Right, this looks vaguely familiar, Twilight said, looking out over the deep coniferous forests cloaking the mountain behind her. As a precaution, since she was human, she withdrew Owl's current chassis from her pocket and slipped the bracelet onto her wrist. But where from? Footfalls sounded behind her. I assume you're awake, a voice said from behind her. Yep, she replied, turning. Oh, right, of course. This is Berk, right? That's right, yeah. Hiccup nodded. Looks baseline so far, except that you're here, and hey. What? In answer, a little black fire lizard about a foot long flashed into being between them. Toothless isn't his normal size, Hiccup explained, holding his arm out for his sort of CO anchor. That certainly means something's up. Not sure what, though. Twilight thought a bit, then shrugged. Oh well. Any ideas? Yeah, actually, Hiccup paused. How would you feel about staging a bout of divine visitation? If the village thinks we're favored by. I think just the ones who are our loop patrons, actually, Twilight suggested. It's easier. Sounds good. Wonder how I'll explain Framherja, though, I was going to go for Thor. Hiccup shrugged. I'll think of something. Framherja? Twilight asked. I'm not familiar with the name. Oh, right. Framherja is a bow I pick up in a variant loop. It took ages, but I finally managed to get her properly soul-bound. Putting action to words, he held out his hand and a gorgeous golden bow flashed into being. Until then I had to rely on her being my standard-issue legendary weapon. She's basically partially sentient, he explained. Sort of like your device owl, I think. Oh, is that the one you used in Valdemar? And yes, that's right. A roar echoed over the valleys of the island. Toothless? Hiccup asked, a note of command in his voice. Too large, my normal size. The little dragon was looking up and into the distance. There, oh, right. I think this is who's filling in the Night Fury slot. Toothless' mental tone was mildly aggrieved. That's my gig. Not this time. Hiccup raised the arm holding Toothless in an expansive gesture. You can be the sarcastic one who constantly throws barbs at us and never has to do any work. I like this new gig. The two Furies were now close enough for the humans to see them. Hiccup casually fingered Framherja's string, not intending to draw, precisely, just not wanting to be caught off guard if he had to draw. Then, with a rush of wind, they both landed heavily downslope. Hi, a cheerful voice called. Spike. Twilight checked. Nice to see you here. Wait, is that? Indeed it is, dear. Seeing a 30-foot Night Fury speak with Rarity's voice was slightly strange, to say the least. Well, this is convenient. Might not be all that convenient in the future, Twilight warned. I suspect you'll end up being my dragon for the loop. Rarity considered this. Things have been worse. True. Twilight turned back to her, for this loop, anyway, twin brother. What was that you were saying about faking divine favor? This is going to be good, Toothless opined. / 52.9. Okay, which of us has the most screwed up family this loop? Scooterloo asked. I mean, this is getting silly. Applebloom shrugged. Same as normal for me. Pretty boring, actually. My mother appears to have been secretly a noble woman, Diamond contributed. That's fairly unusual. No idea who, though. What a scandal. Silver grinned. And we all know what's after Bane your thing, Applebloom said, pointing. I mean, changeling. Yes, well, Silver shrugged. She'd shifted into her Earth Pony filly default as soon as possible, but they all knew the reality. As far as I can tell, my parents were gang members, Scooterloo provided, and the others winced. I think I might still have a shot at winning, Sweetie temporized. Why? Scooterloo asked. Your family is just about the most stable thing apart from Applebloom's. My brother-in-law is a shape-shifting dragon, Sweetie reminded them. My elder sister or sort of twin and kind of parent is Princess Luna, my sorta aunt it's complicated is Celestia, and my other kind of parent is Twilight Sparkle. The others looked at Nyx. Yeah, okay, easy win, Scooterloo grumbled. / 52.10. Fluttershy felt the loop initiate around her, wobbled for a moment on two legs, and steadied herself. What a familiar voice said. Hello, Lemon, she replied, smiling as she turned. Good to see you. And you, little mother, Russ replied, spreading his broad arms for an embrace. I see I'm human, Fluttershy said, looking down at herself once they separated. Yes, I think you're my adoptive mother, this time, Russ confirmed. And you also appear to be immune to aging, which is convenient. Fluttershy nodded, taking that in. I see. So this is back on Fenris. It is indeed. Russ paused. I'm sorry, little mother. It seems likely that you're going to see a side of me you'd rather not, this time. The ersatz human frowned. What do you mean? Russ unbuckled his weapon belt and slipped off his armor, leaving him clad in a standard Fenrisian 5-layered summer tunic. Little mother, this is a baseline loop, save only for your presence. He sat, heavily. The Dark Millennium is one of the nastiest places in the multiverse, simply because of the sheer scale of the problem. Normally, it's much easier to cope. I have my trusted right hand, Bjorn, and I have Freaky and Jerry, and normally I have either my father or at least one of the Chaos Gods on side, nowadays. But the big Primarch shook his head. I already checked. No Emperor, no helpful god to help reduce the scale of things. And last time you were here, your friends the elements were with us. All 6 of you together makes a potent force of order, and quells the madness before it spirals out of control. And Russ slammed his fist into the arm of the chair, smashing it to bits. I am only one man. I can usually preserve the Imperium, make sure it stays what it has the potential to be, but at the cost of an ocean of blood. He finally looked back at Fluttershy, and there were tears glistening in his eyes. Every time, I must win peace with millions of dead, spend the lives of my men like coin. I don't want to subject you to that, dear Fluttershy. Mother. Fluttershy was silent for several seconds. I think I see. And she sighed herself. I know when I think about it, I know what you must have to go through. I know you, Lemon. Neither of them noticed the slight shift in her pronunciation. I raised you, and I know it was a long time ago, but I do know you. The kind of man you are, and the kind you aren't. And I. She took a breath. I trust you, Lemon. I know that if you go to war, it's only because it's better in the long run. You're right that I don't like death. I hate that it has to happen, and I don't hate it less because of the way the loops reset things. But I'm a druid, as well. A student of nature. Predators wolves have to eat, and I know nature isn't all fluffy bunnies, and so long as they're not cruel about it then I can cope. And, she added, I'm going to help you in every way I can. Russ stared at her for a long moment. Thank you, Mother, he said eventually. That means a lot to me. It had taken 2 months for Fluttershy to get properly in tune with her druid nature in the new body. 5 for her to get her studies of the Fenrisian wolf down to the detail necessary. And, finally, about 2 days for her to pick the precise traits she wanted to add. But now, floating above Fenris in a glow of the steely blue natural magic of a world of ice, she was ready to try the best way she could think of to help her son. Origin of species. A fraction of her soul, the accumulated power of dozens of normal lifetimes' experience, burned itself as fuel. A spark lit, and raced outwards, covering the whole planet and rippling like an aurora. Are you all right? Lemon asked, as Fluttershy came round. I'm fine, thank you, she said quietly. Did it work? Well, if you were trying what I think you were trying, then yes. Lemon stepped aside, and the known-awake pair of wolves he raised padded over to the bed. Thank you, mother of our pack, one said in a deep, smooth voice. How to speak as two-legged pack do is a great gift. The other licked her face. Now, get some sleep. You are tired. Fluttershy smiled as she sank back into bed again. It was much easier to ignore a sentient race that couldn't talk, than one that could. Assuming things went in a way similar to normal when the Emperor turned up, the fierce loyalty of the wolves of Fenris should go away towards cracking his entrenched xenophobia. Now, how to deal with the Eldar? / 52.11 The Ursa advanced on Ponyville. Again. Any ideas? Trixie asked. Trixie could go with the old bear out of the hat routine, but that is getting old. My brother wanted to try something, Twilight replied. Theme music started playing. With a gale of wind from broad, feathered wings, an alicorn-clad head-to-hoof in spandex landed in the town square. Fear not, proud citizens of Equestria, a male voice belled from the strange apparition. His costume was white trimmed with gold and black trimmed with purple, the royal colors, and a prominent E was displayed over where his cutie mark would be. What? Twilight covered her mouth with a hoof, glancing over at Trixie. What? Never seen Captain Equestria before. Trixie rolled her eyes, as the Ursa lashed out with a clawed paw at Captain Equestria. The blow bounced off his mane with a clang. It just seems ridiculous, Trixie admitted, as Shining advanced. I mean, I get the whole he has an invulnerable shield thing, but... Twilight shrugged. He felt like it, ultimately. Besides, his mane looks funny when it's floor length. He keeps it that length the whole time, you know, he doesn't use a spell to regrow it or anything. She coughed. We may have a bet on as to how long it'll take someone to work it out. / 52.12, Masterweaver. Twilight trotted up to the throne where her former mentor sat, clearing her throat. Celestia, I've had some time to think and I just wanted to ask you about something. The alicorn smiled. Twilight, you know I'm open to answering anything you ask. Celestia, you've got a great voice, why is it I hardly ever hear you sing? Oh, that one's really easy. I'm just not up to the task. But aren't we singing now? Asked Twilight. With this rhythm and these varying tones. Yes, Twilight, but this is heart song, music that comes from our bones. Celestia shook her head and blushed. It's true, when music is magic, I'm as elegant as a diva, but when it comes to ordinary singing, it seems I have the fever. I'm tone deaf. Rhythmically stymied. 4 left hooves and no beat in my brain. Every time I opened my mouth, ponies would look at me as if I were insane. I know the feeling, Twilight admitted. I just can't dance. Not without magical support. I'd probably crush the hooves of any stallion that I attempted to court. But then every pony gets up, compelled by the strongest heart song, and I always get up and join them, swaying and swinging along. Why can't we do this without magic? They sang as they circled round the throne room. Why are we utter trash on the floor? I can't hum a tune. I'd be clumsy on the moon. Why must our songs always come from our core? It's true that they always mean something, but we sometimes want to sing and dance for fun. Why can't we do this without magic? Answer us. Anyone? / 52.13, Oracle Mask. I feel stupid in this hat, Rainbow Dash said, adjusting the offending garment. It's only for the game, Rarity replied. While Dash was getting used to what she insisted was a very frou-frou outfit, Rarity was making minute changes to the rest of the costumes. Oh, after all these loops, reining herself in to keep the costumes simple was a new challenge for Rarity. Finally, she sat back and looked over her work with a smile. Every pony's costume was perfectly suited to their role, if not exactly their personal taste. A rough and ready yellow for Applejack, purple tweed for Twilight, slinky red for Pinkie, a soft peach with lace for Fluttershy, and the iconic maid's outfit for Rarity herself. Where is every pony else anyway? Rainbow Dash asked, once Rarity helped her escape the feathers and silk so it could be put away with the rest. Building the mansion in Everfree. Thanks for the help, Zia Cora, Twilight said as the zebra paced around the chosen clearing checking their measurements. Fluttershy had already relocated all the wildlife that would have otherwise been displaced by their game, so all there was left was to build the board for this game. Twilight my friend, this help is truly no trouble at all for me, Equestria said, nodding and bracing herself. I should be thanking you, for allowing my practice in the art of the tree. With a surge of chakra, trees began erupting, twisting around themselves to form floors, walls, and a roof. You said you got this skill from a Naruto-fused loop, right? Twilight asked, absently checking Naruto's entry on her list of hub fiction and noting that it needed updating at the next possible opportunity. A strange world to visit, and stranger to stay, Equestria agreed, especially after becoming their first Hokage. Behind Twilight, Pinkie and Fluttershy were sorting through a huge pile of furniture, tiles, wallpaper, and various decorative knickknacks. One appropriately dark and stormy night later, all 6 friends stood in the foyer of their newly built and opulently decorated mansion. Okay, we're ready Spike. Twilight called. Spike walked in from the study wearing a nice dinner jacket. Right, here we go, I'm Mr. Body. Welcome to my mansion. Right then, accuse Professor Plum, Colonel Mustard said, of murdering Mr. Body in the kitchen with the rope. The others waited as the envelope containing the real details of the murder was opened, and the contents examined privately by the Colonel, who promptly threw down her hat in frustration. Tarnation, I got it wrong. And that means I am out. Applejack groaned. Right, that means you have to wait in the foyer with Spike, Professor Plum said, smiling apologetically, better luck next time. Miss Scarlet bounced around, whooping, while the rest of the mares looked over the contents of the folder. So Mrs. White murdered Mr. Body, in the billiards room, with the candlestick. Mrs. Peacock said, Rarity, why'd you murder your husband like that? The cards are totally random, I assure you, Mrs. White sniffed. Spike nodded vigorously in agreement. Then asked under his breath, You're going to keep that maid outfit, right? Rarity's reply was a sultry wink. / 52.14, Masterweaver. Chrysalis trotted into the mayoral office, glancing at the mayor behind the desk. You wanted to see me? Ivory Scroll nodded, walking over to the door and shutting it. I have a personal favor I want to ask. The changeling queen rose an eyebrow as she observed the mayor of Ponyville. Go on. Well, you see, during Spike and Rarity's pruetting party, I came to realize that I have certain, tastes. Tastes which are unique, making it difficult for me to find another pony that shares them. Ivory tapped her hooves nervously. But, well, you changelings have a hive mind, and so I was wondering if perhaps you might find a drone hoodie. Chrysalis held up a hoof. Before we go any further, I just want to explain a few things. Even with the hive mind, any drone I choose won't remember you between loops. They might remember what I recall if I'm awake, but they won't feel it in their heart. Her eyes drifted downward. It's the same thing with any pony, really. Relationships with non-loopers or even those that just aren't awake that loop are going to hurt, because no matter how deep the bond you develop, it'll be wiped clean when the loop resets. So don't look for love with any pony who isn't already, well, you know, looping. She sighed. Believe me, you'll never stop regretting it. The mayor nodded. Wise words. But, I'm only looking for, a good time. She blushed. With a rugged fellow, as it were. Instantly Chrysalis relaxed. I am so glad you realize that. You wouldn't believe how many ponies confuse lust for love, I swear to Fagalies. In that case, why don't you tell me what you need and I'll see who you can recommend. Certainly. Can we keep this between us, though? I suppose, Chrysalis mused. I mean, I can see why you ponies usually require romance as a prerequisite, what with the long pregnancies and all, but I'm still not sure why you're so squeamish talking about it. Mayor. Ivory scroll. The mayor smiled. Just had it changed. Again. I'm making it my real name for the loops, you see, and there are some advantages to my position. Twilight rolled her eyes. Yes, well. My apologies. But I need to talk to you about. She glanced at the door, shutting it. Well, about your request to Chrysalis. How did you hear about that? Berry Punch told me after she got her and Trixie drunk. The unicorn rolled her eyes. Apparently they just started making out on the bar, so she left. Whatever, that's not the point. With a long sigh, the earth pony slumped into her chair. I know. It's unusual, certainly. It's also one of the first signs of Sakura syndrome, Twilight interrupted. A desperate need to find new things, just to break the monotony of the loops. Twilight sparkle, do you really think that I of all ponies cannot cope with monotony? The mayor picked up a stack of papers for emphasis. Regularity is a constant comfort to me, the swishing of pens and quills on stacks of papers. It's just that I also find certain, that a particular sort of thing also, tickles my fancy. I'm not addicted to my practices by any means, and believe it or not, this job of mine requires I submit to psychological profiling at regular intervals. I have no intention or interest in ending the loops, or traumatizing any pony in them. She gave the unicorn a flat look. Something I believe Eternal Twilight knows a bit about. Twilight blushed. You, heard about that. Right. She shook her head, focusing and glaring sternly at the mayor. All right, I'll let this go for now. But can I trust that if you ever do feel desperate or listless, you'll come to us? Miss Sparkle, I Pinkie promise with full awareness of Miss Pie's chaotic abilities that should I ever feel the weight of ages crushing upon me, I will seek counsel with my fellow immortals. Cross my heart, hope to fly, stick a cupcake in my eye. The mayor tapped her hoof. That last one might actually be fun, come to think of it. Twilight coughed. Well then. I'll just be going. She backed out of the office, watching the other mayor warily. Ivory Scroll rolled her eyes. I'm just signing papers, Twilight, I keep my naughty business at home. Please relax. Mused Thorax as he bristled his mustache. This isn't exactly what I expected when the Queen asked me to help you out. He watched the mayor swing, following the white ball with his eyes as it sailed over the course. Ivory Scroll shrugged. Right now, we're just relaxing. We'll get down to business later. She pulled out a large club and examined it. This one's very nice. You should use it. / 52.15, Mr. K. Sure, you can have some of my blood, Mr. Alucard. Wait, is that what you were trying to do when we were playing tag? I always get those two confused, maybe because I'm such a good tag player. Twilight won't play with me since she's busy in a library or something, but I don't mind. I can be very sweet, too. I suppose that's why everything wants to eat me. Pinkie held out her hoof to the panting vampire. He had been chasing her constantly for 3 weeks. Ever since Pinkie annoyed Sir Integra enough that she told him to go and have a taste. Slowly he lowered his fangs over the pink pony. Pinkie giggled. That tickles. Sir Integra frowned as she saw the annoying pink pony continue to bounce around town, but now with 2 little band-aids on her front hoof. Walking inside, she spoke to the groaning, bloated, bedridden vampire lord. Do you know they had to come up with a new classification system? How the hell did you contract stage 9 diabetes? If you were human, all your major organs would be busy exploding about now.